all that talk.
Well,
hopefully it's on.
So actually, fun. Well, it is on the audio. I can probably fix it. I don't know what the hell. That is weird.
All right, he says we're back.
Are we?
Yeah.
Briefly? Okay.
He says we're back right now.
That was very strange. I didn't touch anything there. So I don't know how that happened. Because I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything before we started. I didn't do anything when the audio dropped. I didn't do anything.
Well,
I literally did nothing.
Well,
I changed it to the same. I changed it to the same setting. It was already on.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
He says we're 100% Gucci.
Cool. Well, I'm good with being 100% Gucci.
Yeah.
If you listen through the first
be 50%,
part of silence, awesome on you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you letting us know because I had no idea.
That's my buddy from work.
Oh yeah. Well, and so I've got 3 monitors set up, right? And I keep all of the streaming stuff on the far left, bad eye, and you guys are on the far right. So this is the camera. So when I'm turned and facing the camera and talking to you guys, I see nothing that's going on over there. I check it when we start, and then pretty much don't pay any attention to what's going on over there. So, yeah, weird. Anyway, thank you, OBS, for that.
All right, let's jump into
Philip Lindsay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Houston signed Philip Lindsay to a 1-year deal with $3.25 million. Don't fall for this. David Johnson's been bad. The offensive line is bad. The team is bad. We don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be. Look, see, call back. So,
yep. Well, it could be Ryan Finley.
Oh yeah, yep, it could be.
Houston traded for Ryan Finley.
Yep. Well, we'll go ahead and jump to that. Any other? Did I nail it on Lindsay? Anything else anybody wants to say on Lindsay?
You shouldn't be taking any of the running backs from Houston.
No, that's exactly.
If anybody, it's David Johnson, and it better be really late because he's got pass catching upside, but that's about it.
Because you still have Mark Ingram there. This is like the 3-headed, backfoot from the old folks home with the young guy that just shows up randomly.
Yeah,
Philip Lindsay. This is.
He's actually the caretaker.
He is.
That's why they brought him in.
That's right.
They brought him in to be the caretaker.
I don't hate him for he could as a someone to keep on your watch list. I'm sure we'll talk about him in season because it's not Mark Henry or
Mark Henry, Derrick Henry.
Mark Henry. Could you imagine him being a? Could you imagine him being a running back?
It'd be great, dude. The fridge times 10. Mark Ingram or David Johnson don't have a great picture perfect model of health there. So there is some value to Lindsay. Just don't draft any of these Houston guys.
Important question: is it sexual chocolate, Mark Henry, or is it?
Yes, that's always the answer.
I mean, let's be honest here. I think the only player that you're really looking at on Houston is probably Brandon Cooks.
Yeah,
just because of volume alone.
Yep.
Because I can't even.
Boy,
who else is there?
Yeah, well,
they signed another.
We're getting there. Don't worry, we will get there. Well, they waived their third best wide receiver. So, more on that in a minute. I want to touch on something you said though, Stompy. Cincinnati traded quarterback Ryan Finley to the Texans for an undisclosed compensation. So, a couple of things. First off, as a Bears fan, this pisses me off because how could you get a trade for fucking Ryan Finley but not Kyle Fuller? And second off, what did they trade? You don't typically not see compensation come across. So what did they trade for Ryan Finley?
Wrong answers only.
Yeah, wrong answers only. I'm going to go with they traded some St. Louis drinking water for Ryan Finley. The crisp, clean, Budweiser neutral St. Louis drinking water.
I think you're going the wrong direction here because, if we look at what the Texans have done over the past 2 seasons in terms of their front office moves,
It was a third
They
rounder.
probably gave away Deshaun Watson for Ryan Finley straight
They
up.
just don't want to tell anybody.
Yeah.
A 2023 first round pick.
Bill O'Brien's gone though. They actually have a front office now.
Yeah, but
And it's not
look
good.
at the moves they're making, my guy.
Yeah,
Like,
well, fair. I mean, they cut Chad Hansen. That tells you all you need to know about the competencies of this front office. They cut Chad Hansen. Chad Hansen bailed him out a couple times last year, and they cut Chad Hansen.
yeah. I mean, but signing Ingram, what are you doing? Now you have like 2 wide receivers. Is Kiki Kuti even still on this team? Isaiah Coulter, Brandon Cooks.
Kiki QT count?
I don't know.
He's probably still in the doghouse or whatever doghouse.
It's still in Bill O'Brien's
He's
doghouse.
still Bill O'Brien's doghouse.
Oh, man. Pittsburgh re-signed wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster to a 1-year deal worth $8 million. Does the offensive coordinator change help him any, or do they need to get a running game and a quarterback that's not noodle-armed anymore?
I would say that Juju and Deontay benefit from Ben coming back more than Claypool does. And also, Claypool's an idiot, so
Yeah.
there's that.
I mean, it's always rumored that he turned down better offers from both Baltimore and Kansas City, the two opposite spectrums of where receivers would want to play.
Well, so the other thing too is, and I think we're seeing this a lot. There's a lot of 1-year deals happening. You can read
Yeah.
it
it's
all
smart to do
down
when
this
you're
list,
doing
and
it.
it's because the free agency market's down this year because
The cap
of the
didn't
cap
go.
space.
Yeah. And if there is a multi-year deal, it's usually void years. So,
Well, or it's they know that it's coming, and like with Juju, his market was likely down too. Didn't have a great year last year.
Yeah.
Hasn't really since Antonio Brown left.
well, and I blame Ben and the lack of a running game a little bit for that, though. And I was watching. I hate to take Chris. Actually, I love to take Chris Collinsworth's takes. I think he's great. But one of the takes he gave that I can't disagree with is the running game was so bad that they had to find another way to chunk off those 2, 3, 4-yard hits, and they're running Juju on the short stuff. And everybody says, well, his efficiency numbers were down, but so were Ben's. So how much of that was Juju? How much of that was Ben? How much of that was the offensive coordinator? I think that's more on Ben, the lack of a running game, and the way that they were calling plays and using Juju than it is on Juju himself.
Well, but Deontay Johnson's in the same boat, and we're not feeling that way about Deontay Johnson, are we?
Well, no, because I
Well-
think Deontay Johnson fits more of what Brown was, and I think he works a little bit deeper downfield. Juju literally is their
Hold
running
on.
back.
I
He's
need
like
more
a-
context to that statement. How do you feel about Deontay Johnson, where you're coming from with that? Because, I'm pretty neutral on Deontay Johnson.
I like him a lot just
Yeah.
based off of what his target share was last year. He had a great rookie year too. It didn't show up in like the traditional numbers, but he was great at, with target separation.
He struggled with drops. That was the biggest problem
Yeah,
with him. Is that he
and
struggled with drops.
yes, and he did again this year.
Yeah.
But if he didn't, he would be an elite option to me. I mean,
I don't disagree.
when you look at his weekly production and his PPR production, it was always high, and it was because he was just getting these short targets and catching them, dropping them. But
dropping them.
But
And
he's still getting them. As long as he's still getting the target volume, which he should still get.
And they were, Juju and Deontay were making that work to a degree, but at the same time, the Steelers need to get that line helped. They need to get a running game in and get some of the stuff opened up so you can get people downfield a little bit more. And I don't think that's on Juju. I don't think that's on Deontay. I think that was on the scheme. It was on the lack of a running game and just some of the personnel problems that they had.
I'm looking at these efficiencies and stuff on Player Profiler, and like Deontay Johnson's like 88th in yards per reception, 98th in yards per target.
Right. but
88th in target quality.
He's Tyler Lockett levels in separation and what he was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just points to just how bad the biggest problem is Big Ben coming back, right? Like
I don't know. I don't even know if I agree with that.
I don't think I do.
Because then they might make a bigger play to a guy like Winston.
I don't
know you do
no.
not want to see Mason Rudolph.
I don't agree with the biggest problem is even Ben coming back. The biggest problem was that team became totally one-dimensional, and
because they have no running game too.
Yeah, they became totally one-dimensional. Yeah. I think that's a bigger problem than even Ben coming back is because you're one-dimensional. They're just pinning their ears back coming after him.
And they probably should have phrased it better. One of their bigger problems.
Yeah.
Obviously,
he's not what he once was, but he can still be.
I mean, with this front of a wide receiving core and just even a pass catching core, they added in. I mean, there's a decent pass catching, core. With Eric Ebron still there, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have good skill players.
4 quality receivers on that offense, and you have horrible offensive line.
No running game.
You have a quarterback who's far over the hill. You have a horrendous running game that they decided not to go after or address in free agency. And now you're saving it, for a draft that looks historically weak compared to what we've seen recently.
Well, we'll get to the draft here in a minute because I have my own takes on, what people are perceiving as depth versus weakness in this draft. But more on that later. All right. Seahawks re-signed Chris Carson to a 2-year, $14.6 million contract. Speaking of, you're just going to get more of the same out of Seattle. Chris Carson's fine.
Nothing changes.
Yeah, Chris Carson's fine.
I think it's a great contract for the
I do too.
Seahawks, honestly.
Carson's been steady. He's been good. They run the football a lot. He's been relatively healthy.
That yearly salary is middle of the road at this point. And so it makes sense.
He's a back end one, high end two. Most seasons for fantasy. If you're a Chris Carson dynasty owner, you're happier than a lot of these other guys.
Happy.
I'm actually trying to sell him now.
I probably would, but
peak value right now
for a running back getting a second breath like that, I absolutely would. But I mean, you got people that were pining over Philip Lindsay in his rookie year and shitting on Chris Carson, and look who's in the better position.
This is why
this is size. People, there's this thing about BMI and fine, but yes, size matters at points. Philip Lindsay's a small guy. That's why Denver let him go. That's why he wasn't drafted. And he did awesome for Denver for 2 seasons, let's be real. Last season wasn't great.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he is an undrafted free agent who is a small running back and can't catch the ball.
And so is James Robinson. Minus the can't catch the ball thing. And he's a little beefier. But
at least Robinson, I mean, we want to feel confident about Robinson.
No, I don't. I think Robinson's Philip Lindsay.
It's the same problem that we have with Lindsay. The same problem we have with Carson is that when you take these shots on these undrafted free agents or these super late round running backs, their value never hits to where you want it to feel comfortable with.
What Jacksonville does is going to tell us a lot about James Robinson, what they do in the draft and whatnot. Denver did a lot to tell us that they were never fully invested in Philip Lindsay. It's the opposite. It's the opposite of what the Chargers did to tell us about Austin Eckler. It's the opposite of what the Seahawks have told us about Chris Carson through their actions.
I just,
I
can't. I don't like the parallel there. Just because Philip Lindsay 5'8", 190, James Robinson is 5'10", 220.
Fair.
At the very least, even if James Robinson can't catch the ball, which, I mean, he had 49 receptions on 60 targets.
Yeah, I walked that part back.
Again, it's not about the size. It's about how we view.
It's about how you use it.
How you view about these late round running backs.
It's not about the size. It's how you use them.
Yeah.
Is that what we're saying about running backs?
But for me, you understand though, like Chris Carson, James Robinson, those guys are bigger running backs that can take more of a beating. So I view it as they're far more valuable than Philip Lindsay, who can't catch the ball as a small running back.
I mean, even Carson had to overcome Rashad Penny, due to his own injuries. Who knows what would have made up that backfield had Penny stayed healthy.
Yep.
They constantly bring in draft running backs. I mean, this is why I don't give a shit about Carlos Hyde in Jacksonville, because Hyde really took enough away, from Chris Carson this year. They still, I'm not, and this isn't me saying about DJ Dallas, but this is Seattle still recognizing what their team is. I think when Jacksonville, takes Trevor Lawrence, this is not a run first offense. This will change to be based around what Trevor Lawrence will do. And just like Chris said, it's going to be based on what the Jacksonville will show us in the draft, how they feel about this backfield. Yep. And it won't matter how big or small James Robinson is. It's just regime change. Everything changes, and even though it feels like they have a gift in their lap, we don't know.
Pause. No, I don't have anything else to chew on there. I think we beat that horse to death.
We beat that horse to death.
Panthers signed tight end Dan Arnold to a 2-year deal worth $6 million.
Who cares? Let's just go through this. Washington football team.
Hold on,
Adam
Sam.
Humphrey, who cares?
Sam, hold on. There's a reason we care about Dan Arnold that you're not privy to.
Ugh.
So
not your fault.
We have to talk about Dan Arnold.
No. We don't have to break down Dan Arnold at all.
No.
But what you need to know is this: Dan Arnold is in here for Nick. You remember Nick, our third co-host that left us.
Yeah.
Dan Arnold's in here for Nick because Nick did the Sunday shows with me last year because Dan had to work on Sunday mornings.
Okay.
And one particular week, Nick decides to shit on something by comparing it to Dan Arnold. And that was the week Dan Arnold had like 3 touchdowns. And then from there forward, every time Nick gave a take on Dan Arnold went off on that particular week. There was just something that Nick did that played to Dan Arnold. So that's why the Dan Arnold news is so high, is because we got to let our people know Dan Arnold signed somewhere, and the Nick Sparks karma for Dan Arnold is still alive. And also, he is probably over Ian Thomas in Carolina right now. It's a tight end's week, so it's good to know. Anyway, we don't need to break that down anymore. Adam Humphries, signed by the Washington football team. Meh. Just means that they have an actually competent wide receiver core. It's good for Terry McLaurin.
Yep.
Buffalo signed Matt Breida to a 1-year deal. Doesn't matter. KC re-signed Demarcus Robinson to a 1-year deal.
Can I say Matt Breida could actually win the lead back job there?
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that.
Well, good.
When he's healthy for the 3 games he's healthy.
You.
But I'm not touching that backfield.
It's like a worse Houston. It's like
they completely went away from it last year because Josh Allen can suddenly pass the football and we have Stephon Diggs, and they should have. That backfield's not good.
No, it's terrible.
Kansas City re-signed Demarcus Robinson. That's important because he'll go off 1 to 2 times a year because he always does.
He's not technically the second receiver in that team.
Well, so I have a question about that. Like, why go with Hardman early if you're not going to give him more?
He was drafted to strictly replace Tyreek Hill. That was in the height of the Hill potentially being suspended. No one knew. Like, it was a bad draft pick then. And
Hardman's a 2. It's not DeMarcus Robinson.
Honestly, no. He's been productive. It's just like one of those things where it's like, if you have 2 of those type of guys, use them.
Yeah. You'd think they would, find ways with them both on the field.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
With all that speed.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. New Orleans signed Nick Vannett to a 3-year deal. Jared Cook and Josh Hill are both gone. That's just for my amusement. Nick Vannett right now is the starter there.
He's not.
Adam Troutman. Sorry. My bad. Didn't mean to besmirch the good name of Adam Troutman. The Jets signed Tevin Coleman to a 1-year deal. That is actually his starter right now. So,
oh my God!
Who's the back?
Lamichael Pirine.
Lamichael Pirine. I get it just because he fits the system, but I think Lamichael Pirine's going a little bit undervalued right now.
They're still taking a running back this
Yeah,
year
they
in the draft.
probably.
He'll never live up to Samaje.
Yikes.
Yeah, no reason to take that comment seriously.
No.
Let's see. I don't even remember where I was at in this bullshit. Oh,
Hilton.
Indianapolis re-signed T.Y. Hilton to a 1-year deal. Better quarterback.
He also turned down Baltimore's offer for
Yeah.
more money.
So T.Y. Hilton, my question is this: does he have anything left in the tank, or is this the Michael Pittman show with Carson Wentz?
We're about to find out. Like, who
So,
knows?
I mean, it's a Frank Reich offense. So I view Michael Pittman as more of that Alshon Jeffrey type of player, and that's what he is. He's kind of the jump ball sideline guy. And Ty is kind of the DeJean Jackson type. I mean, he's not as fast, but that's what.
Well, and if you got a quarterback that can get it to him, that's not a bad thing.
Right. So I like this.
I do too.
I like this team next year.
I don't know how great Hilton will be for fantasy. Oftentimes we talk about, this is probably more important to, like, I guess from an NFL aspect to them.
He's a draftable asset.
It's a good receiving core. You'll get Paris Campbell, hopefully healthy and back, who can also stretch the field in the same ways that T.Y. Hilton can. You have a good tight end, strength of tight ends. They got Marlon Mack back.
Yeah.
It should be a good offense.
Well, and for T.Y. Hilton, it's a draftable asset, right? And you hope for wide receiver 3 value out of him when you do that because of his past performances. I mean, 1 year Phillip Rivers in the twilight of his career, to me, is kind of a throwaway year because nobody performed there. Carson Wentz is an upgrade. As much as we may not want to admit it, Carson Wentz is an upgrade over Phillip Rivers. So, if you believe in what T.Y. Hilton did in the league, the first outside of last year, essentially, you got to believe there's something left for him to.
By the way, it's Wentz with Frank Reich.
Yes.
Frank Reich was the QB coach for Wentz.
He was the OC for Wentz.
I thought he was the QB coach.
That was the ex-Vikings
DiFilippo.
coach.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
Steve
Okay,
Filippo
so
was
yeah,
the QB
he was
coach.
the offensive coordinator for Carson Wentz when he had that MVP season in 2018.
Yep.
Yeah.
2017.
17. So
it was 17.
It'll be interesting to see if he can recapture some of that magic. But that offensive line is great.
Mm-hmm. They
That
got a good
defense
running
is great.
game.
Yeah,
defense
that
is good. I love the
awesome.
Colts team this year. I really do.
Yeah, they're kind of.
And they've
We'll
got a
see
full
unless-
and I think they have a full complement of draft picks too.
Possibly.
might, I don't know.
I think they do. It depends how much it depends how much they have to throw the football. I still think this offense is built to feature Jonathan Taylor and not let them rely on Wentz so heavily.
I mean, the Giants the Giants offense is built to feature Saquon Barkley, but we still say Kenny Golladay is getting 125 targets. So
less competition for Galladay, I guess, possibly.
yeah,
In terms of quality
No.
competition.
No,
not
I
at
think
all.
there's, What?
you have Paris Campbell and Pittman right now.
Paris Campbell's largely unproven. We love the talent. He's largely unproven.
It's okay. So it's Barkley.
Barkley, Ingram, Shepard,
If you believe
Galladay.
Barkley's going to start off slow because of his injury coming out,
I think that Barkley's still going to be used in the passing game more, though, and Jonathan Taylor is not a pass threat to targets.
Well, I mean, he'll get 60 targets, but
Still, not 80 to 100 like Saquon's going to demand.
yeah. But I mean, listen. T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah, we're arguing about wide
best
receiver.
ball.
Yeah,
I mean, he's
best
a
ball.
good best ball pick. This
That's
year.
fair.
And he's a
That's
good
all.
asset to have on your bench because he's going to give you some big weeks if you need to plug a guy in.
All right, we're talking too much about.
yeah, let's.
Yeah,
Guys that
can we
don't
keep
matter.
going? CJ Beathard, 1 year deal for the Jags. People are singing
Don't
Gardner
care.
Minshew's death. That's not going to be the case. Bears signed Damian Williams to a 1 year
That's
deal.
interesting.
That's at least mild. I agree, it's mildly interesting. You're going to have Tariq Cohen back. Bears severely lack depth at the running back position, and it showed when they were running fucking Cordero Patterson and Ryan Nall out last year. So I'm glad they addressed that a little bit.
This
I'm
should
still avoiding
be
that
your David Montgomery sell indicator.
Yeah.
He's
Right.
not going to get the targets he needs for.
He was never going to get the targets he needed anyway with Tariq Cohen coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So definitely should be selling Montgomery right now.
Yeah. New England re-signed James White to a 1-year deal worth $2.5 million. Not what he once was, especially not with Cam there. Philly.
Well, I mean, look at how they've built that team though now, because they're going to run a lot of 12 personnel. So, and they signed guys that excel in the slot with Bourne and Aguilar, and even though he had a fantastic season last
outside,
season, but then you signed the tight ends, so James White could very easily be in for. So, I mean, I don't want to spend any more time talking about him, but he's another best ball guy that it's like, well, I mean, he could have a couple 3 games that he gets you,
and he should be a late PPR guy too.
Yeah,
in deep leagues. Philly signed Joe Flacco to a 1-year deal.
He doesn't know if he's going to be the starter or not, is what's been told.
He doesn't want to have to coach or back up Jalen Hurts there.
Right. Yeah, idiot. Houston waived wide receiver Chad Hansen, who had some big weeks at the end of last year. So, he gave himself another shot with somebody.
Yeah,
is what he did. So he's a old show favorite, and Dan called him Chris Hansen, the To Catch a Predator guy, for probably the first.
I say a lot of names wrong.
First month of his
today, so
that entire draft class, you were calling him Chris Hansen. Detroit signed wide receivers Damian Ratley and Khalif Raymond. They joined Quintez Cephas and Tyrell Williams to form the league's best receiving corps. So you got Jared Goff with no receivers.
Woof. That's going to be easily the most avoidable offense in fantasy.
So here's the funny thing: is Tyrell Williams hype is back up again.
Yeah, I know. I did that last episode. I did the Tyrell Williams hype thing because there's nobody else.
Right.
Literally.
Yeah.
And we've seen it from Tyrell Williams. He's a little bit older and unhealthy, but
we did it with the Bears a couple of years ago, I think.
No, he did it with the Raiders.
Raiders. Yes, that's what it was.
And then the Quintez Cephas hype is also up.
Yeah.
Sure.
Sure. I mean, you got to see what that
team.
You got to see what it was like with Cephas
on the
year.
volume. Sure, Tyrell Williams and Quintez Cephas makes sense, but that team is just going to be trash. I feel so bad for Jared Goff.
I do too.
No help.
They'll draft somebody. They have to. They've got to draft probably more than one somebody.
They got to draft their whole receiving corps still.
Atlanta signed Mike Davis to a 2-year contract, $5.5 million there. Right now, he's a starter, so that's why this is in here. That probably won't be the case when we come out of the draft. They're a prime landing spot for a running back.
Still is.
Texans signed Chris Conley to a 1-year deal.
Okay.
So now they have
he actually produced in 2 years with the Jags.
Yeah, so now they have somebody else to go with Brandon Cooks, I guess. That's not Kiki QT. If he's even still on the team.
That's kind of a Chris Conley throwaway pick at the end of a draft.
Yeah,
could get
he's
you
the number
some
2,
points.
I think, there right now.
Probably
with
better.
Ryan Finley starting at QB.
Right. It's gonna happen too. Probably not as much. Actually, definitely not as much of a throwaway pick. I kind of like this move. Tennessee signed Josh Reynolds.
You know what I like this move for more, or who?
AJ Brown,
Van Jefferson.
Oh yeah, because Van Jefferson's gonna slide into the other outside spot in Los Angeles with Cup playing the slot,
and with a good deep ball and a YOLO quarterback sometimes.
Yeah. No, this is very good for that. Rams receiving corps is going to be fun this year. Again, they've been fun before. They're going to be fun again.
It's going to be a blast.
I think Van Jefferson right now is a big buy for me.
Actually, screw it. I'm just going to go order my Cooper Cup jersey right now. I have needed to do this for years.
All right. Los Angeles Rams also signed Deshaun Jackson to a 1-year deal.
Okay.
That's it.
He might be valuable for the 2 games he's healthy.
Like he's John Ross. Like
no,
he's the original.
Right, but
Henry
Ruggs.
At
this point, he is John Ross. He's
except
fourth wide receiver.
Except Jackson's actually been productive before.
Well, but I think this point in their careers, it's like he's the fourth wide receiver to take the top off of a defense. If he gets targets, they're going to be high risk, high reward targets.
I wouldn't be shocked if he starts ahead of Van Jefferson when he's healthy, especially to start the season. And probably
then he tears his hamstring,
and then he'll get hurt, or they'll realize that he's not the same old Deshaun Jackson, and then they'll move him. I do think that he'll start as the second outside receiver to start the year.
Man, I wish I could still get the Rams jerseys where
the old school
the
ones?
number didn't have the fade on it. That wasn't just a custom jersey. Like they have one here, the old school ones, for $110 because you have to order them custom. I really want that blue without the faded number. Actually, that's a better price than the regular Cooper Cup jerseys are. Huh.
All right.
I'll look at that later. We don't need to talk about me ordering a Cooper Cup jersey. That's something that should happen for a band. All right. Moving on. I feel like we probably should have started with this because I feel like we had way too much fun going through that last segment. Right. And now we got to try to bring it down a little bit. So,
sorry, guys.
It's okay. Maybe this will be a more uplifting type of segment than I thought with a light mood around it. But want to talk about burnout for a minute. And this is something so transcending football, which is something we're trying to do more on this podcast, which is why we dropped fantasy football off the name. We're just Beerfield now. We Vince McMahon this thing up. You dropped the last name, right? That's how McMahon does it. So we dropped fantasy football off of it. We're just Beerfield now. And, it wasn't ever because we're not going to provide fantasy football content. It's because we want to transcend a little bit beyond that. And burnout is something that, with any aspect of your life, not just doing a podcast, is something that's easy to get into, whether you're spreading yourself too thin, whether you're putting too much time into one thing to where something you enjoy is becoming something you no longer enjoy, whether you're not taking proper time to take care of yourself because you're investing too much time into other things. Burnout and exhaustion's a real thing. It's something we've all been through. So we want to take a minute to talk about it, to share experiences, to share what got us out of it. In at least my case, what I've found that helps me kind of avoid it, and I know mine and Dan's case, and this is just because I don't want to speak for you, Stompy, and mine and Dan's case, how we overcame it and have pretty much stayed out of it for the most part. And, really just get into that because, that's something that transcends fantasy football. It applies to every aspect of your life. So I want to give the floor to you here, Stompy, first, though, because yours was your burnout and what you've gone through in your journey has been, if people were following on Twitter, relatively public, from thousands of followers suspended. You were doing some pretty big thing all over the place there for a bit, and then not there. And then, so I kind of want to start with you on the journey that you've been on and what kind of led to that burnout, what it led to you kind of going through that, and where that journey's taken you.
Sure. So started into fantasy football, at least writing 3 years ago. Is that right? I think 3 years ago. And kind of rose quickly. I had Mitchell Renz kind of give me a shout out, and that started adding followers. And then I started getting into podcasting, and that started adding more followers. And then obviously Scott Fishbowl happened. I won that over a lot of big names, obviously, and kind of got introduced to the upper echelon, I suppose, of fantasy football Twitter, which that's something we probably should talk about too. But regardless, so when you're in that light, you start to make waves and you start to grow a lot bigger. And that's when I started doing an actual podcast with Aton. But I kept growing, and really, I think as I look back on it, I think it comes from the fantasy community. This idea that you have to grind all of the time. You need to be doing work all of the time. And there are guys that can do that. I mean, look at like guys like Ray GQ who are just always putting stuff out. And
Fucking machine, man.
And they're great. And I
Yep.
love those guys and I'm friends with those guys. But for a lot of us, it's just hard, especially when, and by the way, this is not taken. Ray also, I believe, is a lawyer. He also has kids and a family, but he continues to crank stuff out. So that man is a monster. I can't do that because I have my own mental health issues. I have a lot of stress and anxiety that I deal with on a daily basis. So it's hard for me to do that, but I felt like it was required of me to do that in fantasy football to climb up the ranks because that's what people are telling you. And they're still telling you to this day that that's what you need to do. And I think I'm hoping that is shifting a little bit. That idea is shifting a little bit, but it's still out there that like you need to put in your licks and not get paid and just write for free. And you need to put out as many articles as possible and as much content as possible and stay in everybody's mind all the time. And I think that's a pretty toxic Twitter or way to do things. So I kept growing. I was podcasting. Our podcast grew really, really quickly. Went over to Dynasty Trade Calculator. When we moved over, we jumped up a bit and then felt like I wasn't doing enough to increase my presence. So started doing more, joined Superflex Super Show podcast as a co-host, started a website that was supposed to be kind of like Dynasty or Draft Consults Inc. And started doing a podcast for that. And then I was also guessing on podcasts. So I was recording 4, 5, 6 times a week, which was extremely rough for me, obviously, because when I'm working 8 to 10 hours a day, come home, eat dinner, have like an hour with my girlfriend, my dogs, and then have to record for 2 hours a night, it basically turns into a second job for me. And it takes me away from what I enjoy about my life and the people that I want to be around. And so I just kept pushing myself too hard. And then that was like last summer. I mean, obviously this year has been just weird or difficult for everybody in different ways. So that was another thing. And having to juggle my job and staying healthy and doing all of the fantasy football stuff, it just got to be a lot. And I was putting probably 50 to 60 hours a week at work and then another 30 at home with fantasy football. And it was just getting to be too much. And then we had the election last year and all the stuff that happened last summer. And I got really heavily involved in spreading that message and started a podcast with that.
Yeah.
And so I was just doing too much and work was getting crazy because I was working all the time and really weird hours. And finally I was like, I'm going to have a mental breakdown if I don't stop. I can't. And it's one of those things where you get too involved in too many things and you can't be good at any of them because you're just not focused. Mm-hmm. And I felt like my passion was going away and my quality of work was going away. And finally I talked to my girlfriend. I just said, I think I need to back off of fantasy football because at the end of the day, fantasy football is a game within a game. It's not I was getting paid a little bit, but it's not something that I rely on. So, and stopped putting that out last summer. And then I got booted off of Twitter last fall and kind of just took some time away and to clear my head and focus on my job and my relationship. And getting my brain healthy, and um, now we're back here. And in February, I started feeling a lot better. I got a lot more energy, and it's only going to get better from here because now my crazy schedule with work is going to be different. I have a week off here, and then I'll have hopefully a routine, and I'll be able to have more energy. And it's just at the end of the day, I mean, that was a long story and a lot of words to say. I got too excited about my growth, got too involved in too many things, and got burnt out.
Do you think that's kind of like a common trend too? Like you mentioned once you reach kind of the upper echelon of the fantasy community on Twitter, and I'm not talking about like the Matthew Berries and shit level, but within our own community reaching that top, do you think, because I don't think you're the first person, I doubt you'll be the last person that reached there and then they felt like, because they don't want to lose it, they want to hold on to it and they want to keep growing, keep up with the people that actually want to do it and can do it successfully.
Yeah.
Do you think that plays a part into even getting a small taste of it? Because we went through it and we never even reached any of your heights.
Well, I think it's large. I mean, I think the expectation is when you get to be known is that you put out quality content and you put out more of it. And especially because as you start to go upwards, things start to you get into websites and podcasting networks and whatever that are behind a paywall or whatever. And so that means the people that are subscribing are expecting quality content constantly. So yeah, I absolutely think that's the case. And in your guys' case, I'm sure it had something to do. And I know I felt it at times too, is you guys are putting out this content weekly and I as well as other content, but your popularity doesn't grow like you would like it to. And it just gets to be to a point where you're like, I'm so sick of this. This isn't fun for me anymore because I'm so worried about followers and listeners that like I dread going to record. And I got to a point where it's like I would dread recording because I was like, okay, this is another 2 goddamn hours of my life. And and with my weird schedule, my sleep schedule was all sorts of weird. So it was like always like, how much sleep am I going to get? And it just finally got to a point where I was like, I can't keep doing this without sacrificing something. And unfortunately it was fantasy football because that is not it. I mean, I love it. It's a great hobby, but it's not on even close to high on the list of my priorities.
For
sure. So, Dan, if you want to tell our story, and then I'm kind of gonna go into, because like just what my life is and how I have stayed on top of it for the last year and a half plus.
Yeah. So, for those of you who may not have been with us, we started this show back in 2017 of April. It was the 3 of us, me, Chris, and Nick, for the first 2 years. And for year 1, our motto was really based around the footballers. Like we are a lot of our how we reference things, the decisions that we made moving forward were based around trying to become the next fantasy footballers, and which is impossible to do. You should never expect those things to happen because they're an outlier within this community. So within that thought process, without any sort of connections in here, we dove into it. And then by season start of the 2017 season, it was 5 shows a week, 3 for each of us. Obviously, we did 3 separate shows. It was 3 separate shows or 2 episodes.
We did YouTube content and then 3 episodes a week is what we did.
3 episodes, and then YouTube comment was all solo work on top of the Sunday show, and it's for us who don't. Who didn't grind this to begin with behind the scenes to all of a sudden, put in 40 plus hours of work. we reached that point. We recognized it. In year 2, we dialed it back, but we really got to see the toll of it when Nick left the show to pursue school and to really just gain back the fun of it. And then that's where our mentality shifted between Chris and I, year 3, which we regarded as our worst year because we had to reinvent ourselves, 2 of us, and figure things out while trying to maintain some sort of relevancy on Twitter. And then by year 4, last year, we stopped caring and we hard focus more guests and just creating a space, for us that'll make us happy and to continue to never try to reach those points again.
Yeah, and for clarity, stop caring didn't mean we stopped caring about the quality of content that we put out. Stop caring meant more so
of our followers.
We're not going to care about followers. We're going to accept the fact that this is a hobby and something that we do for fun and something that should stay fun. And we decided this off season, because we're constantly evolving, that we're not going to follow the same model, because we realized last year, in season particularly, you're saying the same shit every week. You're going through the same shit every week. Sam, how many new freaking podcasts pop up every year? And it starts at 6.
I mean, listen,
yeah.
The entire fantasy football environment is saturated. So you have to have a niche or a quirk or something.
Yeah,
like you have to make yourself known.
Right.
Luckily, my personality makes me known. I like who I am in the fantasy football community is who I am in real life. I'm a grumpy man I'm a grumpy person that yells at everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm loud. But yeah, I mean, it's just
you can't.
People think they know things or have this idea, and I guarantee you that most of them are not unique.
No, and they're not, and that's what we had to realize is, look, we started saying it towards the end of last year. We started focusing a little bit more on betting content, but we started focusing a little bit, started saying it into last year and really sat down and talked about it this year. Like, look, there's no reason for us to do start, sits, waivers, etc., etc. Everybody's doing it. We are not going to have a unique take. We have our dedicated followers, and we love them for that want to hear our take.
Yeah.
But we're not going to have a unique take that's going to draw anybody in because they're like, oh my God, that was such a good take. Let me go grab this. So it was more about just us and how do we make it fun for us and what do we do for us. Because, I mean, I'll be honest with you. We are 9,000 listeners a week down from our peak. And I'm okay with it.
I didn't even know you guys were that high. Goddamn.
Well, yeah, we were at peak in season. Our high water mark was 10 to 12,000.
Goddamn. All right.
And we are down from that. And I'm okay with it because, the grind that was it made it very it's hard, and it made it hard. Very not fun,
especially when, and here's the thing, like I know when I'm starting to get burnt out because I dread going to work. I dread recording. Mm-hmm. I dread literally Sunday night. I can't enjoy when I couldn't enjoy Sunday because I was worried about all the fantasy things that I need to do this week.
Yeah.
And it's just when, and you guys, I mean, you guys have been doing this longer than I have, and you've been working full time too. And it's just, it's so hard to work a full-time job and then try and come home and get, because part of the fantasy football space is energy. You got to have energy. You got to keep it up. And it's hard to do that when you're working a full-time job and then maybe you have kids or you have to do things that evening, and then you're expected to have energy to record that night or energy to write an article, and it's just we're also in a day and age where we have to worry about money a lot more than say back in the 1950s. This whole boomer versus millennial stuff, like it's not as easy for us to do things for free, to donate our time like that. And it's different again once you reach those upper echelons of fantasy Twitter, but those guys got in early. You got to find something unique and latch onto it, but you also have to grind. And I don't think a lot of people realize that.
I think
they don't.
It's when they taste that. It's when you get the first bump from somebody that you look up to. You get your first big guest on. You get to see a sort of rise in follower count when you get, put onto Ryan McDowell's, list of under 1,000, or when you get shout outs from some of the big names, even not even to the Barry levels, but even, like you said with Mitchell Renz, who also gave us a massive bump when we first started. It kind of gives you that inflated ego that you can do this. I can do it all. I don't need to sleep. And for the first, couple months you can, and you're actually successful. It's when you hit your first roadblock is when you lose. It's when you invest too much into where your listeners are at, to where your followers are at, and you start to see a minor dip because let's be real here. Fantasy football has its highs and lows in terms of content, and who we are is a very small percentage of what the community actually is. Is something we also learned last year is, and I think Twitter also caught on to us a little bit, is how we are as a community is nowhere near reflects how fantasy football is played throughout most of the world. Like, they're casual. They give a shit from late July, August, mid-August, all the way through their championship, and that's it for them.
And you see it in your listens, too, if you're paying attention. You start to pick up in August, and you tank as the season, and you slowly fall off as the season goes on, as people are eliminated that divest. And then, tank in January. And that's how it goes every year. And like I said, it just became not worth that level of grind to hit the point of where, like, we were all almost ready to quit. Nick did. He had other things he wanted to accomplish. We were all ready, but that's when we decided, all right, well, what do we do? Nick left. We had to figure something out. And that's when we realized that with just two of us, we couldn't grind the same way as three of us, because you do work as a team, and you feed off of each other. And the biggest thing we lacked with just two of us is energy. When there's three of you, it's a little easier to get up for the show. You can be tired when you get on, and there's energy. You're feeding off of each other, and you're going. Yep. There's just two of us.
One person.
And nothing. Yeah, and it takes one person. One person gives you gives you more diverging opinions. It gives you more conversation pieces. And it gives you that much more energy. There's just two of you, and you're agreeing on most things. It's tough. That's why we went to having more guests on, because it adds that aspect that we need of a third individual. Now, I'll talk a little bit about avoiding it, because, so, for those that don't know, and I mention it casually on the show, this is my only hobby. I do this. I work a full-time job. I have a 3-month-old. I'm an admin of a 5,000 to 6,000 person, or a 6,500 person bourbon society that does tasting events and barrel picks and in-person events and runs damn near like a business. And I homebrew. And those are all things that go pretty consistently. So that...
So I'm not meaning to laugh in a serious moment. Literally just described me.
Yeah.
Like I'm not the bourbon person, but I was a professional brewer.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's one of those things that for me it's like I did that as a coping mechanism because I have anxiety problems, and for so long I didn't do well in my own head. I'm in a good place now. But for so long, I didn't do well in my own head because of anxiety and major depression disorder, which meant that any downtime for me was bad. So I just completely invest myself into anything I can do to keep myself busy, and what happens with that is you end up spread too thin. So for me, the biggest thing for me avoiding burnout was, one, I have one luxury that it sounds like you didn't, Stompy, and are about to have, which is a huge help, is consistent scheduling, because my job's consistent. I work for multi-state utility, Ameren. I work for Ameren. I work for a multi-state utility company. I work in IT. I have a 7 to 3:30, 7 to 4 job. And sometimes it requires overtime. A lot of that I get to dictate, which is awesome. That's a luxury not a lot of people are afforded. That is step one, because, if anything else is going to fall off, it's not going to be that, because that is what pays the bills. That is what keeps a roof over my head. That is what takes care of my wife and kid. From there, it was Dan and I getting on a consistent recording schedule. As much as we can. I mean, there's still flexibility if one of us can't do it on a particular week or anything like that, but it's no longer what day are we recording, what day does this fit, what day works for everybody. This is our default time, and if for some reason it doesn't work, you say it. It was Tuesdays at 6:30. We got in the summer. I had a kid. Realized, all right, we probably need to fix this to later, when after the kid's in bed. Good co-host. Now it's Thursdays at 8. And the flexibility to work with each other. It's scheduling things out and keeping that organization there for me, so that I know going into the week, because mentally preparing is a big thing for me too. The moment's not too big if I have the chance to mentally prepare myself for what I have to do on that given week, and can kind of figure out how I need to piece things together. So keeping a calendar was a huge thing that helped me there, just to know this is what I have coming up this week. This is when my downtime is. This is when I can fit in downtime. And then plugging that stuff in and knowing what I have to do on any given night, and making sure I still take a couple hours for myself every day, making sure, I take a couple hours to spend with the family every day on top of everything else I'm doing. And then the last kind of piece of that is knowing when you just need to take a breather. I have a buku amount of vacation time. Again, another thing I'm blessed with. That's Monday. I've hit throughout this week and last week, and I'm like, man, I'm spread thin, started to have some of those defeated feelings that, man, like everything that's got to be done right now is kicking my ass. And, because we're going through a web store and e-commerce redesign and a bunch of shit with the Bourbon Society. We're launching a website for Beerfield. We just switched up podcast hosts. We've got things that we want to do that don't really add to the day-to-day work, but that add to the overall experience, that are a decent amount of upfront work. And so it's like, I start looking at the whole picture again, and it's like, all right, what can I do to take some of this off of my plate long term? And the answer in looking at what was there was that, well, a lot of the shit is just a high amount of upfront work, and a lot of it's close to being done. Okay, this is a good time to use a vacation day or a mental health day, because I'm allowed to cover mental health days under sick days. So this is a good time to use a vacation day or a mental health day to just take and knock some of that shit out, so I'm not spread nearly as thin. Just take 8 hours to where I would normally have 8 hours booked, free that up, and just use it to knock some of that other shit out. And it's just basically keeping perspective in front of you and managing your own workload, and knowing when too much is too much. And you need to, knowing the signs that you're starting to get there, you feel defeated. As Stompy said, you're not energized to get there to do something, and knowing that maybe I need to step back. Dan and I have done this before too. This is part of not grinding and not caring about so much what the follower count is. Maybe we need to take a week off here. We've done that a couple times.
Yep.
Take a week off. We'll get back to it next week. We're just spread too thin to do something this week. It's not a key week for us. It's not free agency or the draft or everybody's draft week or anything like that. So take a week off. and we'll come back at it next week. And it's just knowing that that's okay to do, that it's all right to step away and take some time for yourself, or to take some time to get yourself mentally right, or a day to recharge. And it's really all it takes is just, if you feel yourself getting there, take a day and recharge.
Yep.
That's so.
Yeah, no, so unfortunately this year has just been rough in that, like, my job, and I know people, you should just tell your boss you need time off, but
Yeah,
we're in
it's
the
not
middle
that
of
easy.
or we're now at the end of it, but we're in the middle of production season.
Mm-hmm.
I'm my boss's kind of go-to guy. I just can't take time off, unfortunately. So that was the unfortunate part about this year. But yeah, I mean, everything you said, I'm starting to learn is like, I need to be better about scheduling myself, where it's like, I can't overextend myself with 4 different podcasts plus 2 different articles. I can't, like, I need to limit it to, you can have one, you can host one podcast, you can be a guest on another podcast, but that's it for the week and stuff like that. But yes, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, is you have to take time off. You have to have time off. And unfortunately, when you're not getting paid to do fantasy football, you have to go work, like I said, 40 hours a week,
Right.
and then
Or more.
and do right, and then do 20 plus hours a week of fantasy football, and it just gets exhausting. And that's where the burnout occurs, is that you don't rest, you don't take a break. This becomes a second job. And yeah, so I mean, those are some of the, I mean, honestly, I haven't been able to do much because of my schedule, but now I have time to sleep. I can finally sleep and get rested and energized. I can get on a routine as I'm working my way back into things like fantasy football. Like I said, limiting my schedule, learning to say no, or learning to say, can we reschedule this?
Yeah.
Kind of stuff. So yeah, you did a fantastic job of describing how you hold it off.
Yeah.
I think what you just said is probably one of the more important things, is don't be afraid to say no. And that, and that's say no to yourself. I think it's the biggest thing. I think that also leads to burnout is you want to keep saying yes, because you don't know what your limitations are quite yet. And even then, you're still learning how far pressed can you stretch yourself, and you got to just be able to say no. Like, you have to.
Yeah, you do. And rhythm's another important thing. And I'll say this. I have rhythm. And so last year it was hard because, like you said, Stompy, you're going through production season. I was delivering on a $500 million project last year. So, and COVID hit. So there's deadlines, and now you're working from home, and it's all sorts of weird. But I also had a goal I was driving to, which helped. I was driving to be able to buy a house at the end of the year. So all the overtime and stuff was great, honestly, and I was perfectly happy to work it. But I couldn't do it now with what I have on my plate, and I understand that, and it's okay. My baseline right now is, 40 to 45 hours a week, and I'm fine with it. And what it's allowed me to do is it's allowed me to have rhythm, which is so important, and it's why I worked retail for a long time. Dan works retail now, and it's why a set schedule, I think, should be a standard, and why it's so important is because if you don't have that set schedule, you can't have rhythm. Every day is different, and if you don't have rhythm, it's super exhausting. So my rhythm right now is the same. I wake up 6 to 7 a.m., I go to work. I work anywhere between 3:30 and 5. Business dictates it. Thankfully, I have a job and a career that I love. So it's easy for me if I'm invested in something, or I'm helping with something, or I'm involved with something, to put in the extra hour and a half to 2 hours on it, whatever, and I'm fine. And it's also easy for me to say, this is a tomorrow problem. Another thing to learn if you're burnt out at work, realize work will still be there tomorrow, and if you're not on a deadline, you don't got to finish it that day. You can walk away from it and pick it back up tomorrow. It's okay as long as you're not missing deadlines. It will still be there. And that was a hard one for me to figure out. But from there, I log in 6 to 7 normal day will be 7 o'clock. I'll work until 3:34 normal day. Tonight it was till 5. It happens. From there, I'll go spend a couple hours with the family. Maybe do some things around the house, but spend a couple hours with the family, eat dinner with them. Wife typically tries to get the kid to bed between 6:30 and 7:30. 7 to 11 is when I come down and work on the other stuff. It's when I come down and watch film or work on our website or record a podcast or work on Bourbon Society things. It's, 7 or later is when most of our events happen, things like that. So, I know that 7 to 11 is the time where I'm kind of going to work on the pet projects. And 7 in the morning till 3:34 in the afternoon is when I'm going to work on work. And 4 to 7 during the week is when I get that couple hours to just kind of sit down, recharge a little bit in between the two things, spend a little bit of time with family. If I've got to go run out and do something real quick, it's okay. So, all right. Anything else on that subject?
No.
Take care of your mental health, seriously.
Yep.
Yes.
Do it.
Like I didn't start doing that until I was like 30, and it's made things a lot easier for me.
Yeah, when you take care of it.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, let's talk about rookies real quick. This will be a light segment, and it's going to be a light segment because I know Dan has opinions on a lot of things.
Light, I promise.
I am still, I'll be honest, I baseline rookies. I baseline based on stats, and I watch those people that hit the statistical numbers first on film. So I've watched about 8 quarterbacks, 10 running backs, and 8 to 9 wide receivers, with 9 wide receivers still slated to go, and no tight ends other than I know Kyle Pitts is a beast. So,
That's about right.
So, I mean, my opinions here are going to be light. We'll get more into this as we go. I have slated to have my wide receiver film done by the end of the March, and then get tight ends done that first week of April, and then double back on everybody else I need to watch. So this is going to be early on takes. But, Stompy, we'll start with you. Let's plant your flag on a guy you're staying away from right now at return cost, and maybe a guy that might be risk or reward type. Not a guy you're totally sold on to where like, yeah, I'm going to plant my flag. Not a guy you're like, for sure, I'm not touching that, but a guy that you could see really going either way.
So I've been on Kylan Hill since last year.
We are a Kylan Hill Pro Show.
I think he's better than Kenny Gainwell.
Why you gotta see?
Dan.
You had me there, then you had to go and say.
I am with you on this, Stompy. I am 100% with you on this one.
Listen, I think the only reason that Kylan Hill even has dropped to where he has is because what have you done for me lately? Or because they haven't seen his face in a while.
He played 3 games in 2020. Like, he got hurt. Like, so
and then he opted out for the rest
schedule. They played 6 games. He opted out after 3. So I'm with you there.
But yeah, I mean, 2019 over 1,300 yards in the SEC. He is surpassed, and we now call it the Zach Reed metric. But Zach Reed from Dynasty Dummies at Tacit Assassin 13. He has done a study on running backs since 2014 coming out of college, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but a very small percentage of those running backs that produced a 30-plus reception season in the NFL did not produce a 20 reception season in college, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It does.
Okay. So like, I think it was like over 80% of the running backs that came out, or 80% of the running backs between 2014 to 2019 had a 20 plus reception college season. So we use that metric to kind of tell how well they're going to do as a receiver in college. It's not perfect. No metric really is, but it's a good indicator that they'll be a good receiver. And Kylan Hill has 2 seasons of over 20 receptions, an 18 reception season. He was supposed to be playing. Oh, by the way, that was 23 receptions. He had 23 receptions in 2020 in 3 games.
3 games. Now, we have to preface this. This is when Mike Leach took the offense over this year in the area offense. Yes. The running back does not play a similar role to what we said. This is the Max Borghi thing, too. And we'll talk about that next year when we get
Sure. Yeah. But, I mean, I think he proved a lot the year previous with his running.
For sure. And then I agree.
I guess what I'm looking at is, okay, he can run for 1,300 yards. If he was on pace for a 1,000-yard season, college season, like, we would be head over heels in love with this kid this year. And everybody was when we knew Mike Leach was going down there, but because he just didn't play in the last 3 games and opted out, he's dropped. And I really think that he could end up being a top 3 running back in this class.
I mean, he's athletic. He's got the size.
Yeah.
Which is definitely what we want. I know he had his pro day, but right now 5'10", 214. Like he hits those measurables that you want to see. As Stompy, as you just pointed out, he's got the pass catching upside that you want to see. This is in before Mike Leach took over, so you just can't say, well, Mike Leach there, that's why he got so many targets. Yeah. 29 targets in 3 games is still 29 fucking targets in 3 games. He's impressive.
Right.
I just, as Hopper knows, I am obsessed with Gainwell. I've been obsessed with him since I started scouting him last year when he was a redshirt freshman, when he actually played as well. And it's in the same boat as Kylan Hill. It's what have you done for me lately? And now we got to see what his pro day was this past week. And then I think Kylan Hill had his, and his numbers still look good. Him is all about draft capital, right? It's one of the main things that we look for. Landing spot in draft capital, but we want to know what the team thinks of the player. And I generally don't take most running backs that are day 3. And if he slips to day 3, I'll be a little concerned. I still like Hill. He's still easily within my top 10.
Yeah,
not higher than that.
If he slips to day 3, something's wrong.
Something's wrong. Yeah, it's round 4 and above is the demarc point for running backs, I believe. So you can still go to round 4, and you have a pretty good shot at having some form of value at some point in your career. But if you go after that, it gets tough.
Listen, and Kylan Hill is a running back that most NFL teams are looking for at this point. I mean, he can do everything. He's decently sized. I mean, he's not gigantic, but he's 5'11", 214. Probably could playing weight could probably be around 214, 220 if he bulks up. So if he lands somewhere where he could be a scat back plus role, I think he's got tremendous value.
Yep. So real quick, because I know that you're limited on time here, and then Dan and I can finish out ours. So that's who you're planting your flag on. Who are you not taking at their current draft capital, and who's the guy that you see potential in that also could bust?
Jalen Waddell.
Potential, but also could bust.
Get out of here. Yeah. Like, he's 22. What are you talking about? Mm-hmm. What did he even do? Get out of here. Why not? It's Henry Ruggs again. Like, it's just...
I think he's a little more dynamic than Henry Ruggs.
That's fine. But, okay.
But maybe bar.
Maybe that's an unfair.
Low bar.
Point being that he's not a mega producer either. We're basing this on how dynamic he is and not his production. And I don't like that because I just don't. And the same thing with Josh Jacobs. And now we're seeing it again with Josh Jacobs. They obviously don't trust Josh Jacobs, and he wasn't a producer in college either. Like, I I get this, like, Tyreek Hill, we want this dynamic type of player.
We need to stop the Tyreek Hill comparisons too.
We really do.
Well, the Tyreek Hill comparisons are getting
see a Tyreek
stupid,
Hill.
but the reason the Tyreek Hill comparisons are getting stupid is because you have so many fucking undersized receivers in this draft class that's considered deep. And that's a rant that I'm going to save until we do the full wide receiver episode, but just know that's where my opinion is right now, is a lot of these people that people are planting their flag on are freaking 5'9", 170, 180 pounds. That's not.
I've been having so much fun the last few days with Devonta Smith truthers and Rondale Moore truthers, because
it's
Rondale Moore's 5'7". Are you kidding me?
Rondale Moore. It's
at least he produced.
It's
and dominated.
Amari Rogers. It's Elijah Moore. It's
Devonta Smith.
Devonta Smith is 6'2", 150 pounds.
How is he gonna, like, the only person that, like, has ever survived at that size is
Robbie Anderson?
Robbie Anderson.
Marvin Harrison, I think, is where a lot of it is. It's he's still an outlier. Like, you can love Devonta Smith. I enjoyed watching his film. Same with Jalen Waddle. They're still outliers. And yes, a team made Alabama. I get that. What has Judy and Ruggs done in the NFL so far?
Nothing. Judy's got more of a
But here's the thing. Here's my thing for Judy, though.
You're gonna say the same take I've given. I think
like Judy's he's 6'1", 200 pounds.
Judy had a Michael Gallup type of first season where he struggled with drops, and he got baptized by fire because Cortland Sutton got hurt, and he had to see number one coverage.
But Judy was, and arguably is, the best prospect in the last probably 5 years in terms of route running. That's how good Jerry Jeudy is. That's how highly touted he is. But it's one of these things where it's like, if you didn't produce, I don't know why you're getting this high draft capital nonsense. Like, I just don't get it.
Because he plays for Alabama. Dude, that's literally.
And I think isn't
Kadarius
Toney.
Yeah.
Isn't he in the same boat too?
Yeah.
Except Toney didn't break an ankle.
And he's not
like Waddle did.
Not very athletic. It's just,
and he had over 1,100 yards last year.
He had 900 receiving, I think. It was
but I mean, he actually has a productive.
At least he
year.
produced, right? Yeah.
I don't get it with Jalen Waddell. I didn't get it with Henry Ruggs. This is where, like, I'm all for, and I listen to the tape guys, but at some point you have to acknowledge the analytics and the production, right?
You got to blend them together, which is what I try to do. And
I do too, but like Henry Ruggs last year, I can't do
Ruggs' tape was fucking awful.
But he's really fast.
Yeah, that's it. Ruggs is John Ross.
He runs fast.
Like, the only one that I feel like I've been wrong on about that is DK.
I was wrong on DK.
DK's analytics looked fantastic
when he was healthy, right?
Yeah.
The same thing with,
I was very wrong on DK.
I think a lot of people.
I'm okay with it.
DK,
I'm not alone.
But in general, like, that's the thing, though. It's like these outliers. They're outliers for a reason. You can't say Rondale Moore is the next
Tyreek Hill.
Tyreek Hill, because no. Like, yes, okay, he's a physical freaking athlete, but you can't say. I mean, Tyreek Hill is so unique, like, that literally an entire division has built their roster around.
It's insane.
Tyreek Hill.
All right, you ready for this? And I pulled these in order from somewhere. Jalen Waddle, 5'10". He's actually tall for this class. Rondale Moore, 5'9".
5'7" now.
Yeah.
Is he?
He had his pro day.
He's actually 5'7".
He's 5'7". He ran a 4.29 unofficial.
Oof.
Which is, if you had 5'10",
and he had like
so
a
mid
42.5 vert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's athletic. Right.
I absolutely love Rondale Moore. Not like it's height. Like, I'm sorry, his role isn't to be a jump ball receiver.
No,
he's not a number one
be a running
either.
back that plays out of the slot.
Yeah, I love Rondale Moore.
Elijah Moore, 5'9".
Love I'll play on my flag on him any day.
Chatarius Atwell, who's not getting a lot of hype, but he's a guy that
Tutu Atwell, yeah,
was
Louisiana
flagged for production, 5'9". Cade Johnson,
too.
a guy I've seen some rumblings about, 5'9". So
there's a lot of small receivers.
This is
class.
quote unquote a deep receiver class. This is a short receiver class.
By the way, just so you know, like the only ones that I would be taking of the wide receivers in this class, I hate taking rookie wide receivers. By the way,
No,
is probably
I've heard that
Rashad
before.
Bateman.
I like Bateman.
Love Bateman.
Jamar Chase.
No,
Really?
no. Wide receivers.
Yeah, Jamar Chase.
Jamar Chase from LSU.
Why does this say RB5? Why? What am I looking at?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Tylan Wallace isn't bad. I mean, but yeah, this class could end up being very productive in the NFL, but I think the only one that in here, the only one in here that could be an elite top level wide receiver is Jamar Chase, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think Bateman can get there too.
Oh, sorry, and Rashad Bateman.
And Rashad
Yes,
Bateman.
those two. Yes.
Yes. Smith is iffy. St. Brown, I think, will probably be solid based on what I've seen. I haven't watched his film yet.
It's a great number 2, number 3.
Yeah, and
But
we've
and
seen
that's
that
the
with
other
some
thing, is,
people.
like,
That's
I
okay.
think a lot of people are looking for, I mean, you should be looking for the next like big thing, but most of these guys are going to be role players.
And
That's all they're going to be.
and be
But-
okay with a guy like Amon-Ra
Yeah.
St. Brown who's going to be a solid 2 or 3, because guess what? You need those two.
Yeah. And I get it. And this is part of our process and trying to find these players. But yeah, like people want these player comparisons. And sometimes you get like, I heard one.
Comparisons
like,
are
and I can't
forced.
remember. I think it might have been Kenny Gainwell is kind of like Matt Breida, a little bit of a Matt Breida
without
type.
the injury issue. Yeah, without
Yeah.
the injury issues.
Yeah, and while not people weren't happy about that, but it's like, okay, but not everybody can be Alvin Kamara or Kareem Hunt or whomever your favorite athlete is.
Right. Or your favorite running back is. I mean,
Well, even like Kamara. I mean, Kamara had a poor, he didn't have a great combine. He doesn't have great college numbers. He wasn't the guy with Tennessee.
if you were a film guy, you were on him. If you were a stats guy, you were not anywhere
you're off
near
of
him.
And,
So-
and also landed in probably the greatest spot he could have hoped for.
Yeah.
And that's
So
that's
it-
where outliers spawn from too.
I think that's at the end of the day when you're planting a flag, it's hard. I mean, or with guys that you do like or don't like, most of them likely aren't going to be elite producers in the NFL, and that's okay.
Yep. Anybody you're iffy on, I guess. Not that you hate. I mean, we hit the other two.
There's a few like late that I'm like, I don't know if I'm iffy on, but like I'm like, those are interesting.
I see the potential, even though it might not pan out. Yeah. Just give us one that sticks out. It doesn't have to be your only one. I'm sure you'll have plenty leading up over the next
like
month. But
somebody like Seth Williams, who
Yeah.
has a body type to be that traditional X, and while he wasn't a super duper producer in college, at the very least his final 2 seasons he eclipsed over 1,500 receiving yards and 12 touchdowns in his final 2 seasons at Auburn.
And it's not like Auburn. I mean, Bo Nix, Auburn's quarterback.
Yeah, so
Pretty
yeah,
fucking
it's not
terrible.
a great. So
Yeah,
it's just,
he's so produced with.
and this is like Donovan Peoples-Jones last year. It's just like, guys, these guys, if you look at them and look at their tape, they're freaks of nature. They just don't get quality targets. And Donovan Peoples-Jones was like, if you look at him and how like the kind of athlete he was, and then looked at some of the catches he could make last year, you would be on him late, because it's like, yeah, that guy could develop into a X wide receiver. And it's the same here with Auburn, where Seth Williams is getting 760 and 830 receiving yards, and he's leading the team in receivers or receiving yard share. And it's just like, what's another one? DJ Moore. Look at DJ Moore.
Yep.
Look at who was.
Look at Elijah Moore the last 2 seasons with Old Miss.
Yeah, there's another. I like Elijah Moore a lot. If you're gonna go small guy, go Elijah Moore.
Small slot. Yeah. Dude ran a 6'6" 3 cone. Or 6'3" 3 cone.
It's insane. It's also a pro day though.
Oh, and then AJ, and here was another one. AJ Dillon. Everybody pans AJ Dillon for his not pass catching, but look how horrendous Boston College was at passing.
AJ Dillon is everything people wanted Zach Moss to be.
He's the next Derrick Henry, guys. We all know this.
He's not.
He's a sit behind Aaron Jones. No, not him as an actual athlete or player. The same scenario where he has to sit behind a running back that's now tied to at least a couple more seasons.
Yeah.
Until he actually gets a chance.
But point is, context does matter here. So yeah, while we're saying, okay, these guys aren't mega producers, but look at what their target share was, what their dominator was. And so I like guys like Seth Williams that are going that late, because it's I again, like with Donovan Peoples-Jones, I can pick this guy up late and I'm not really risking anything, and he could become a monster. So yeah, I mean, I like Donovan Peoples-Jones. Honestly, just don't love this class beyond probably the middle of the 3rd round. Just not in love with this class.
Sure. All right. So.
Because they're so small.
Yeah.
Toothpick legs.
Indeed. All right. A little after 10. You said you had to bounce.
Yeah.
So one more time. Thank you for joining us. Dan and I are about to give you a couple more rookie takes before we wrap it up. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for sharing. It was good to sit down and chat with you. We're happy to have you back.
This was fun.
Not just on the show, but on Twitter and I'm glad. I'm very happy that you're okay, that you've been able to define some sort of
balance. We'll see. We'll see.
Hopefully. If you ever need anything, man, you're always
people apparently getting away with a lot of stuff on Twitter, so I have to.
Twitter's become kind of it's getting very preachy on there. We'll just say that.
Yeah, so I got to start slapping people around a little bit, yelling.
I think you may need to.
But I appreciate you guys having me on. This was great. I'm really glad to be back and podcasting again, talking about football.
Yeah,
having fun.
You got a platform. All you got to do is let us know. We'll fit you in anytime.
Absolutely,
anytime, buddy.
So yeah, follow me on Twitter at StompBearPig. Look for my stuff at Dynasty Nerds. Some things in the pipe right now. We'll see what happens. Might start up Dynasty Diagnostic. Might join another website. We'll see.
All right, buddy.
All right, dude.
We'll see
guys, this was fun. We'll talk to you guys soon.
See you, buddy.
Later.
All right. So I guess me and you get to argue about stuff now.
Let's wrap this up. Well, we don't need to argue too much, but yes, we'll argue probably.
All right, cool. I'm going to give we'll alternate. I'm going to give my flag guy. He kind of snagged Kylan Hill, and I haven't watched enough wide receivers to have a flag guy. Marlon Williams is intriguing, but I couldn't pull the trigger on that one.
I'm back and forth with Marlon.
I was too. I wanted to like him because he had some size, primarily played the slot and caught damn near everything. But there were some things that I wasn't sure on. And so as far as a flag guy, from what I've watched, outside Kylan Hill, I absolutely agree with him on Kylan Hill. It's between Michael Carter and Kyle Trask is my flag guy. So I think I'm going to go... For this episode, I'm going to go with Michael Carter, and then we'll hit Kyle Trask in some other episode. Because
you might be the only truther out there.
Well, maybe,
I'm so glad.
How often am I a quarterback truther on people I shouldn't be a quarterback truther about? Kyle Trask is this year's pick. Michael Carter, though, 5'10", 200, so As long as he maintains something close to that, even if he put on
He's
5
actually-
pounds or
so-
so. I haven't checked pro
Senior
day
Bowl.
numbers.
At the Senior Bowl, he measured in at 5'7", 7". I think it was 5'7", 7/8".
Really?
Yeah,
That's still okay for a back.
Great size. The height, just from a historic standpoint, is a little concerning. But this is your take, man.
Yeah, if he's truly 5'7" and 200 pounds, that just helps his cause, in my opinion. But
he's a bowling ball.
yeah,
Dude,
bowling
he
ball.
is.
If that's really where we're at, is that he's 5'8", not 5'10". I hate colleges that had inches for no reason.
It's what they all do.
Yep.
Yeah, different.
But Michael Carter is a guy that I thought had great vision, especially in the open field. I thought he set up blockers really well. He stacked his blockers well. Had very good acceleration, a quick change of direction. He was good as a pass catcher, which I think is where he's going to make most of his hay. It's kind of as a pass catching back. But great hands. Worked the flat very, very well. Definitely had the speed to get outside. He was a perfect complement to Javonte Williams. So for these teams that are looking for kind of what New Orleans did with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, the smash and dash type thing, what the Colts are doing with Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines, Michael Carter is the guy that can play that Kamara, that Nyheim Hines type role with another bigger type of inside back. So he's got a ton of slipperiness to his game. Doesn't get bodied up very easily, which is something that I liked about him. He doesn't go down easy in the open field. And he has plus speed. He was consistently outrunning defensive ends and linebackers out of the backfield. But he's a guy that pretty much has to work on the edge. So in between the tackles, bit of a smaller back. Didn't really have the ability to push piles. Can get stuff there if he gets squared up. Wasn't great in pass protection, and had some choppy footwork trying to do those types of between the tackles one-cut runs. But he's a guy that you can get him out of the edge and get him into space. He works very, very well. He's a guy that I'm going to plant my flag on as a mid-round type of back in your rookie drafts that is not ripe with mid-round types of backs. And, he may or may not get there. It depends on how people value guys like Jamar Jefferson, for example, in your league. But for as thin as the running back class is, he's a guy that I'm relatively comfortable with planting my flag on as a Kylan Hill consolation prize.
Yeah, I mean he's not a first round pick in rookie drafts, which is great.
No.
He shouldn't be, right?
No.
You hit the nail on the head. The fact is he's not. His highest range of outcomes is Phillip Lindsay in terms of his high touch volume for a guy at his size. Except at this point, we know that Michael Carter is going to get drafted. He has a chance to go day 2. I don't know if he will, but his role fits well to where the NFL is shifting to, and I think he will carve in a role, and I think he will have an opportunity to provide. I like Michael Carter. I'm not in love with his class, and if you want to plant your flag on a running back that's going to go probably mid to late round 2, why not? Like that's where you take.
He's Austin Eckler sized. I mean, yeah. Austin Eckler is kind of the
Gainwell are the same, or in terms of that standpoint, that's their ceiling is Austin Eckler.
Austin Eckler's who came to him when I was watching him play. So,
yeah, there's no disagreement there. Like I said, his height, there's some issues in what his high end ceiling could be, but he falls into the realm of a guy who could give you at least multiple top 24 seasons.
Well, there's an argument for running backs not being drafted high because no running back is giving you multiple good seasons. No running back has an extremely high ceiling. So we'll talk about that later. So who's the guy you're planting your flag on? And why are we talking about Kenneth Gainwell?
It's not going to be Gainwell.
That's too obvious, isn't it?
I have to. It's always Gainwell and it's always Elijah Moore. Like when I was on Matt McCoy's show last Tuesday, those were his 2 highlighted players for me. I've been talking about both of these players. I won't talk about Gainwell. I talk about a lot more than I do Elijah Moore. But Elijah Moore is getting a lot of buzz right now. He's out of Ole Miss. He was the wide receiver 2, 3, 4-ish during the A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf in his freshman season. He committed 50 targets in a receiving core that had 3 wide receivers drafted: A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, and DeMarcus Lodge, who went 5th round to Tampa Bay. You also had Dawson Knox, who got drafted and now they're starting targeting for Buffalo. There's quality target volume that he has to compete against, and he still carves out a role as a true freshman. That's impressive. Those guys all leave for the draft. He comes into his sophomore season, and he commands around 35% of the receiving yards and over 40% of the receiving touchdowns. He becomes the guy. He may be small, but he commands volume. He's done that his last 2 seasons. He does have first round draft buzz. He'll likely go somewhere in round 2. The NFL loves him. He's one of the few guys that film grinders and film grinders and analytic guys both love, because he hits all the key notes. He's a great route runner, that fantastic hands. He's a fucking bulldog. The dude he wins despite his size. He still wins, and because he plays from the slot, he gets that knock on him. Look, we've seen slot receivers dominate. Keenan Allen dominates. Juju Smith-Schuster dominates. Yes, they're bigger than them, but we've seen speed slot guys. Randall Cobb, for multiple years with Green Bay, dominated in an offense as a wide receiver 2. We know that Elijah Moore is not a wide receiver 1, and that's fine. He doesn't need to be. But in terms of PPR and the rise of that, when you have a target hog in Elijah Moore, he's a fantasy fucking producer. And again, just like with Michael Carter, you don't have to worry about taking him in the first round, because you can gobble him up mid to late second. And that's where I'm targeting. And him and Gainwell have always been my 2 play guys.
All right. As far as somebody I can see going either way, I want to talk about Dyami Brown.
Okay.
And this is not a flag situation. This is really a guy that I can see going either way, because when I watch him play, he looks the part, but he doesn't produce the part, is the best way I can put that. And what I mean by that is, he seems to have a very smooth stride. He seems to be a very fluid runner. He's strong after the catch. His deep routes are nuanced. He uses head fakes and jab steps to keep corners off balance, so he has some nuances in his route running in general. He's got an ability to understand zone. He pretty consistently beats man and has deep ball and big play ability, but it's just not all put together for him. There's upside there, and you can tell that there's upside there as far as a guy that could potentially do it. He looks every bit as smooth as Rashad Bateman does, as far as the way that he runs and the way that he runs his routes and everything. Those are 2 guys that I've watched in this class, and I said, their stride is just smooth, and what they do just looks smooth, but he didn't produce in the same way. There were some nuances that he had that I really liked, but he struggled with contesting catches, played one side of the field, so he didn't have a ton of versatility, didn't really stack defenders, and didn't use his positioning in a great way. So he had some nuances about his route running, and has a good stride and looks very, very fluid, had some good things that he could do after the catch. The contested catch thing was a problem for me. The lack of versatility was a problem for me. And, kind of the way that he handled defenders and positioned himself for a frame that, is 6'1", 195, not the best amount of weight, but you're still 6'1". You have a frame, you have some length to you, that he didn't really seem to use. So he's a guy that I've heard some people like him, and I can agree and see what they like about him. There's also some holes there to where I could see that going off the rails. So to me, based on what I've seen right now, rookie drafts, he's probably around 2 pick. And I'm fine with taking him there. I'll let people take Rondale Moore and other guys ahead of him. But landing spot's going to be a big thing. Is there a team that believes in him that's going to work through some of that stuff with him? But you can definitely see the potential in Dyami Brown.
I agree. And he's also playing alongside Daz Newsome, who
Yes.
is another NFL caliber receiver who also took a lot of volume away. And Dyami Brown is just a better receiver than Daz. You just see it in the overall metrics that he's better.
Yep.
He's also an early breakout. He's also an early declare. DJ Chark, in terms of what his analytic measurables show me, 22 or 20.2 yards per reception. Great deep threat. There's going to be some things he has to work on. Obviously, thankfully, you got Sam Howell throwing him the football, so he at least can play with a competent quarterback. Which it's been a while since UNC had one of those. But no, I'm there with you on Brown, and again, this is why I love round 2 picks in this year's draft, because there's going to be talent that gets pushed down no matter what, especially in super flex leagues.
Yeah, absolutely will. Who's the guy you're back and forth on?
So mine's going to be Tamari and Terry from Florida State. Athletic freak, 6'3", 217, 214 pounds. He's gonna run. I think his pro day he ran like a 4.45. I know some of the next gen things out there that will measure on field speed has clocked Terry upwards to like 23 miles an hour at full stride. Terry's fucking fast. Problem with Terry is that he's with Florida State, horrible quarterback play. He's been there for a long fucking time. But he produced and broke out early, I believe, as a sophomore. Where the fuck do I have his paper on here? Broke out as a redshirt freshman. He's older for a prospect. I think he's already 23, and he declared early as a redshirt junior. So there is age concerns there, but for wide receivers, we're not as concerned as we would be for running backs even.
Right.
But he produced, a 34% of the market share of yards as a sophomore. So we know that he can be a focal point of the offense. And he's got the greatest upside because he looks the part of an outside receiver. He's got the athletic measurables for a dominant outside receiver. We just have to see if he can put it together. There is some off the field issues. Obviously, there's been rumors that he didn't take being redshirted very well. He didn't have a strong relationship with the Florida State staff, and some believe that may have led him to kind of have he had a horrible junior year. He won't go day 2. I don't believe you will. But he's someone that if he lands on a team like, let's say, Kansas City as a Watkins replacement, that I think you could see insane upside if everything kind of falls in the right place. And he's not even a round 2 pick in rookie drafts. That's the best part. He's a round 3 guy. So, taking these shots on these type of players at that type of value is what we want you guys to do, because that's where the upside lies in.
Indeed. I haven't watched his tape, so I can't really have an opinion. I know the size profile looks good. I know that there's a lot of people that agree with you on the athletic freak part. I'll have a more full opinion when we actually
you're gonna hate and love his game, like especially if you try not to just watch his junior year, watch some of his sophomore year.
I try to watch at least one game from prior year.
Yeah.
So I'll get there. He's somebody that's been talked about enough to where he's going to get an auto watch before the draft. Before we talk wide receivers before the draft. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
All right. A guy that I am not touching at their current draft capital, Trey Lance. No, I'm not going to go into Trey Lance. No. You got to wait for that one. I mean, it's true, but that'll be a fun
conversation.
I'm sure it will. That's not really where I was going to go with that. But
it's not a lot.
No, there's not right now.
Value is so good this year.
Well, I'm torn between, do I just go ahead and give the Trey Lance take, or do I go ahead and
you can tease it if you want,
go with Kenny Gainwell, or do I go ahead and go with Kenny Gainwell?
Dude, you just want to go after guys that I love. But I mean, okay.
No, I don't. Remember, I don't hate players. I hate ADP. Oh, Chuba Hubbard. There's one. That's a good one.
Fine.
That's a good one.
We can agree.
We'll go with Chuba Hubbard. I'll take the slam dunk right now. We'll save Dan and I arguing Kenny Gainwell for the running back episode. We'll save the Trey Lance pick for the quarterback episode, which actually I believe those two things are the same episode. So that'll be a fun one. Tune in 2 weeks before the draft. So Chuba Hubbard is a guy that I'm not high on. People are high on Chuba Hubbard. I don't understand it. I think that he's Zach Moss. to a degree. He shows power between the tackles, but he has such a runway before he gets any sort of speed, before he gets any sort of ability to use that big frame. He needs to be like 20 yards downfield before he gets there. The acceleration is one of the worst that I've ever seen as far as he goes. Just no explosiveness, no acceleration, moderate top speed. And the thing is, if you're a running back, you got to be able to explode in short space, and Chuba Hubbard does not explode in short space at all. He had fumble problems, wasn't really exposed as a receiver, lazy blocker, which is going to hurt his ability to get on the field, and it's going to hurt him in the eye of NFL teams. Short yardage situations, fine, but I think that's his upside, is he's probably a short yardage back. I mean, this is Josh Adams all over again, in my opinion. This is another James Conner type pick, in my opinion. This is a big-bodied guy that was a solid college back that I don't think has the explosiveness or the ability to make it at the NFL level. To me, if you're taking Chuba Howard anywhere before round 3, you're drafting a bust.
Yeah, Hubbard had such a dominant sophomore season. Like, had he just declared in 2020, I think we all be okay. I think more people would be okay with it. You would have probably had some of his flaws exposed.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he doesn't accelerate is still there. It's just,
oh yeah, exactly.
He's working with a lot of space in the Big 12.
He should test well. Like, when he gets going, he does get going fairly.
Not quickly, but when he gets going, he does get going.
He does get going. Land him in an offense that can spread him out. Obviously, Arizona, I think it's most people's dream landing spot for a
gross.
lot of backs.
No, I would hate Hubbard in Arizona because he can't fucking catch.
Yeah, I'm talking about spacing wise. Short, he's gonna have 5, 6 man box. He's gonna have less than stack box. It won't be
give me Kylan Hill or Michael Carter in Arizona.
Give me Gainwell.
Or Gainwell. I'm okay with that too.
But either way, I don't. Hubbard has seen his hate rise up, especially after his junior year.
Buffalo's gonna take him.
Yeah, Buffalo. I mean, it sounds about right. Right, you're gonna fucking pair him up with that backfield. I'm with you. I'm not there's no. I don't have to worry about him. He's gonna get taken.
Somebody else is gonna take that, and I'm gonna be okay with it.
But as for my stay away, I'll take the layup at receiver, and I'll just pick Kadarius Toney.
Yeah.
The only saving grace for Toney is for some reason the high end media guys fucking love him. Like, first round mocks, there comes a point where you can't ignore every single high end media guy saying that Toney's a first round pick. There's a good chance now that it happens, which is going to vault his value up. That's the only redeeming upside to his fucking profile. He's small. He's not going to test extremely well, given his size. He's a late producer. I don't give a fuck if he was a converted quarterback out of high school. Dude attempted only 6 passes in college.
Right.
They say that he's a utility running back. I'm sorry, he averaged 20 attempts a season, barely. Like, he couldn't outproduce the best for the target, which outside of Pitts this year, with fucking Van Jefferson. And while Van has his lovers, Van didn't have a great profile to begin with either, and he was also an older prospect. So with Toney, it's thankfully most of us on Twitter are going to pass him. We are not the majority of how dynasty people think. There are still a lot of casual rookie drafters out there, and thank God we'll fucking dodge that landmine, because I think when Toney gets drafted, it's going to be easily seen that slot guys like Rondell Moore, Elijah Moore, Amari Rodgers are all going to be better NFL receivers in the long run than Toney. Toney's value comes from, if he gets the first round pick, he may have some redraft value because some team will want to siphon targets to him.
Yeah, again, more of an opinion on him when I crack his tape. I haven't done that yet. Again, I'm in the middle of wide receivers, so
his tape isn't bad. He's just he tries to be too flashy in his profile.
Well, yeah, and as far as actually him. So he did qualify based on production.
In his final season.
Yeah, and that's basically what it was. It was his final season. He did just enough in his career, but it was barely. And it wasn't on yardage or receptions. It was on yards per reception, touchdowns, games played, which, that changes a lot at the NFL level. I would much rather have you do more on more at the college level than more on less, because more on less just doesn't show well for me. Did produce a bit in his final season in just 11 games, but overall he's a guy that I'll see the tape on. Like I said, he qualified on metrics, which puts him in automatically kind of not the upper echelon, but people that at least in the realm of possibility, I think, have the ability to produce, and he's going to be drafted high enough to where, like you said, Dan, if there's enough smoke, there's probably fire. If enough of the big media is putting him in the first round, he's likely at minimum a day 2 pick, so he's going to have the draft capital to potentially produce. So he's really a guy that comes down to film for me. If you have the statistical profile, if you have the draft capital, then the film's kind of the last judgment that I'm going to pass you through, and where do you rank with everybody else. I'm not watching anybody right now that doesn't have the statistical requirements. So
that's fair.
And he's one of 9 right now that are, for statistical requirements, he's actually one of 1, 2, 3, 4 right now that I have to watch, and there's a couple others that have gotten hype that I just said, okay, I'll watch them because enough people are talking about them. Also because last year was so fucking weird that statistics are a little bit out of whack at the high level.
Yeah, especially with COVID too, that like everything got thrown out of shape there in 2020.
Yep. Cool. That's our show.
We didn't do a beer review.
Oh shit, we didn't. We should do that. Hold on.
Beer review.
Stompy's such a good conversation. It was really hard to break.
There's no great point for us to just
do this. Yeah. So here we are. We're gonna do it at the end.
All right, I'll jump into it. I'm drinking Anvil & Ford's Mousetrap. This is a barrel-aged porter aged in Woodford barrels for 18 months. There's no adjuncts added to it. Ford Porter, which is generally a little bit sweeter, less on the dark chocolate-esque bitterness, and more so on more of a sweet chocolate almost to it. So nose-wise, you definitely get more of that Hershey's milk chocolate to it. I believe aging in Woodford is also going to help bring out vanilla tones and
chocolate tones too. Woodford naturally has some chocolate notes to it.
It only clocks in at 11%. As this has warmed up, it's still, I don't get much barrel on it. In terms of booze, I don't get much booze. Not barrel booze on it.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's due to the low ABV in terms of what we normally get from a barrel age, but for 18 months, though, there is a lot of barrel that's in there. It's just not, boozy. So for people who don't want to taste booze or don't want to have that effect.
So I've had Woodford at, not to jump in here, but I'm going to jump in here. I've had Woodford at full proof. They do a batch proof release every year through their Distillers Select. And even at batch proof, Woodford does not have a ton of alcohol notes or a ton of burn to it, which makes me think that the fact that it was aged in Woodford barrels is going to lead to it not necessarily having a huge boozy flavor. I mean, the ABV notwithstanding, the barrels shouldn't have a lot of impact on the actual beer's alcohol by volume. Yeah. But Woodford in and of itself, even at batch proof, doesn't have a ton of booze to it, a booze flavor to it. It doesn't drink hot even at 125 proof.
Wow. But yeah, so for this one, I mean, if like this is a very solid. You don't see a lot of barrel aged porters. A lot of it at this point, so they'll out for stouts, they're out for barley wines. Porters kind of get left behind there. So being able to put their base porter, through the ringers of an 18-month-year-old a Woodford barrel, it's extremely solid. I would love to get my hands on the vanilla variant, but as a base, I think this is a very, very solid barrel aged porter.
Yeah, no, sounds great. Hopefully, you guys still have some on Saturday.
I got some. This was given to me by Zach.
Oh,
yeah, this was
well,
not released.
maybe they'll still have some on.
Store.
Is it in the tap room?
I'll have to see if it's still there. I'll have to, if I can find out. Maybe it's been a while, so I'm gonna probably lean no.
Okay. So I had Speyburns Speyside Single Malt Scotch Companion Cask, matured in Kentucky Bourbon Cask. So there's the look on it. It is I turned it the wrong way. Everything's backwards on camera. It is a wine and cheese place single barrel pick. One cheese place over in St. Louis, by the way. Great place to stop and shop at. Really good guys in there. Everything's retail. Decent selection on not just wine, but bourbons and scotches as well. Main reason for drinking this was, again, Jessica Walter, rest in peace. Just because one of the characters, Mallory Archer, Scotch on the rocks. I wanted something I didn't feel bad drinking on the rocks. I'm now drinking this neat. On the nose, you definitely get some of the wood cask notes that come with the bourbon cask. It's a little bit smoky. There definitely are some fruity notes, but they're more bright fruits. They're not so much dark stone fruit, so you're looking at like lemon zest, orange zest, things of that nature. Eat shit, Jordan McNamara. You can hear me sipping my drink. Not bitter.
Not at all.
So it does have a little bit of the smokiness to it. It's not an Islay, so it's not heavily peated, but there definitely is a little bit of a smokiness to that. Part of that can also be barrel char from the ex-bourbon cask. Beyond that, there's a bit of vanilla, and again, just a bunch of bright fruit, almost a little bit of lemongrass with more lemon, orange, again, just bright fruit type notes to this. Maybe a bit of toffee there, but a lot of it is just, it's a really bright drinking bourbon. Not bourbon. It's a really bright drinking scotch with a really kind of short, light finish. It drinks very bright with the bourbon cask just kind of hanging out in the background. So you get all these nice, bright fruit notes with a little bit of peat on the actual scotch, but the bourbon barrel's hanging out there on the back end with just a nice kind of oak backbone with some vanilla undertones. So overall, solid drinking. It's not something I dip into a whole lot simply because it's not necessarily one of my favorites in the collection, but for no more than I paid for this bottle, it's a very good drinker. I think it was like $45-50.
A bad price for scotch, generally obviously being on the higher end compared to whiskey and bourbon.
No, and I hadn't really thought about what I was drinking because it was just such an easy drinker. That's why I had to kind of pause and go ahead and palate it again and everything, was because I wasn't really thinking about it, you know?
Sure.
So, anyway, now that is the show.
No, that is the motherfucking show.
At Hot BFF, at 30 BFF, Beer for Fantasy Football, YouTube, and the podcast. Sorry for YouTube, by the way, for audio not being there for the first little bit of the show. Not really sure how that happened, other than technology's technology, and when you do things live, you're going to have some technology blips. I could go back and fix it. We talked about burnout. I'm not going to go back and fix it. So,
no.
It'll be there for what it is, but again, apologies for that. We didn't really touch anything on anything. The only thing I can think of is Windows did an update between last show and this show and knocked some things sideways. So that's also why and honestly, it makes sense now. It's 30-second pause in the intro too, because I had to get the music coming through the soundboard right and everything. So I don't really know what all that was about, other than Windows is Windows. So we'll be back next week. Same time, Chris Allen?
Next week, yeah, Chris Allen.
We're doing some homebrew, right? Some homebrew talk?
I forgot that Stompy used to do it. I almost want to get him back on and do that homebrew. I like to get a couple.
He brewed. He didn't just homebrew. He brewed professionally. Like he worked for a brewery down here. So
I almost want to reach back out if he wants to jump on with us and Chris. I'm trying to find some people. Going to be a lot of homebrew guys, not a lot of football. When you have football guys on, we're going to ask football questions, but it's going to be very, very homebrew centric.
Chris and I are both football guys too, but we're also both homebrew guys.
Yeah,
so
this is the first real shift into doing our beyond football stuff. So hopefully if you love this show, I really hope you love homebrewing too. So stick around for that. It's going to be a great episode. Chris is a fantastic mind, not only for football, but for homebrewing. We had him on last year and talked a lot about the same things. That show went on for like 2.5 hours. So
it went very well.
It won't be as long this year, but it'll definitely be a fun show for us.
Yep, it is. Until next time.
See you guys.